When it comes to social distancing, us humans have gotten pretty good at it. But to a new puppy, they don't know what it's all about. Coming up, we're joined by Dr. Sally Foote, who'll spend some time with us discussing new adoption socialization, especially when we have to be distant. Stay with us.
Finding a solution for your pet's behavior problem can be confusing. Dr. Sally J. Foote helps you help your pet. Private consultation and resources are available at drsallyjfoote.com. Foote & Friends, better bond, better behavior.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
And thanks for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. Very fitting topic on this episode of the Paw Report, and we're joined by Dr. Sally Foote, a pet behavioralist. That's a mouthful. But we're talking about COVID-19 and our pets. Mm-hmm. And COVID is everywhere. It's what everybody's talking about. It affects all of our lives. And we can't forget about our pets during this as well, because they're affected too. And you've seen some of that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So now that my time and my emphasis is focused solely on dog and cat behavior and providing behavior consultation services and so on. Fortunately, we have not seen direct illness in the pets because of the COVID-19, yet because of the stay-at-home orders and people's schedules changing, and that we have seen some difficulty with some pets with people staying at home. We've also seen cancellation of some really important puppy socialization classes, puppy kindergarten for people who just got a new young dog or a puppy dog, or, basic training classes. And so now people may be struggling a bit with some over-rowdiness, rambunctiousness, or even fear-based, issues in their puppies with this COVID-19. And just kind of depending on at the time that this airs, where we're at with how much people can go back to, any kind of regularly scheduled work life or school life, etc. Having a lot of time at home, especially with your dog, and even cats too get separation anxiety, and now shifting back, this change in the routine, we could see a re-triggering of separation anxiety.
So what sort of symptoms, if you will, do you see in a pet when that happens? Is it acting out as far as misbehaving bathroom-wise? Is it chewing? Is it aggression? Is it all of that?
Well, as a veterinarian and one who now is specialized, if you will, or focused completely in behavior, we tend to get contacted about the worst things when everybody's at the end of the rope and ready to give up. I mean, it's just how it is. Because they can go to the Google and they can search around and they can find other videos. They've contacted their trainers and such. And if the advice, and level there is solving the problem, then things are going to be better. So what I tend to hear and see is where we already had some kind of brewing tension, say, between the dogs in the household or even the cats in the household between each other. And then now, because there's more people literally in the home for more hours in the day, or more time, more dogs or other animals walking past the windows, we can see an increase in housemate fighting. Because now with, say, more people in the home and more noise, or there may be like more food out, with everybody snacking and eating at home because we can't go out to dinner and the children have to be at home. And so if we have dogs who tend to want to guard a bit over food, when that piece of pizza drops, and one of the dog goes to eats it, and the other one will zoom in and now aggress. This is happening, more frequently on a per day basis than it was before the stay-at-home order. Or if we had, when one dog ran to the window because he saw people walking past, bark, 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 jumping, and this one runs also and jumps, that little flare of agitation, if it happens only on Saturdays or Sundays, maybe these two dogs don't get so much, that stacking up of it happening, they never get to fighting. But now with the stay-at-home, they're running to the window and the other one runs, and this happens 4 or 5 times a day. Now in that 4th or 5th time, this one actually jumps on this one and goes to bite him. For our cats, with more people in the house all day long, then for a lot of cats, they lose the places they can lay and rest. You're sitting on the couch, or your children are, instead of the cat sitting on the couch, or even on the back of the couch here, because just people sitting on the couch. And as I say, my rule of thumb for cats to be happy is that each cat has at least 3 perches in the home. And so if they've lost the back of the couch, for the morning time when normally you're at work and your kids are at school, then the cats are more laying on the floor together and they start competing for trying to find perching spaces. So we get the cats now starting to hiss at each other or chase at each other, or we may see house soiling problems in the cat. In dogs, we see more of either fear-based fear problems, hiding, cowering, or aggression problems. And then the cats, we tend to see inter-cat aggression or house soiling, litter box problems.
Well, the stay-at-home order, you're going to obviously be at home, and most families are, but how do you, once it's lifted and everybody's going back to their regular schedules and their lives, how once again do we acclimate our pets to that? It's like, we've been home with you for 12 weeks now, but we're leaving you now. And
right. So the good thing, I guess, is that the states are rolling out like these plans, right? And by this date, we anticipate that 50% of these businesses should be open, and so you probably have an idea at least a couple weeks ahead of when you're going to be going back to maybe more back to your office instead of working from home, or when the schools may open. So prepping, first of all, prepare your pets for you going back to your new routine by starting it up now. So that means if you're going to now need to get up at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning to be able to be out the door and go to your job at 8 a.m., start getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning now. Make your breakfast just like you normally would. Feed your pet at that time. Actually leave the house. Leave the house for a few hours and then come back. Okay? And when you leave the house, you always want to give some kind of reward, something that's nice for your pet when you leave. So this way they are like kind of happy about you leaving, and associating good things with that. If your pet has ever had signs of separation anxiety before, they are definitely going to relapse and be bad now. So please consult with your veterinarian about you might need some either anxiety reducing supplement or medication during this, even with the at-home training time, so that when you really go, we don't get into really injurious behaviors on the pet or damage to the home at that time period.
Is there a permanent solution for separation anxiety? I mean, is it something that a pet will suffer with every time you leave, whether it's for a short period of time or a long period of time?
Anxiety is always managed. So there's a plan for this pet for when you need to leave them that helps them to be less anxious about leaving, and then they learn to be less anxious. And that plan is a combination of short departures, knowing what triggers, what are the clues to the pet that you're going to go that now we need to link a positive reward with so that they're not anticipating you're leaving. And thirdly, that you are teaching that pet to be an independent pet. Because separation anxiety is often related with this, what we call like the Velcro animals. The dog who always loves laying right next to you, always having his head on your lap. Mm-hmm. The one who sleeps with you in bed and sits on your chair and sits on the couch and nudges your arm to be petted. The cat who's always laying next to you, laying on you. So frankly, they love you, yes, and we love them, yet they have to learn how to be laying on their own and not next to you. And they also need to learn that the sound of like the door opening and closing means good things are happening instead of, uh-oh, now you just left. So that's where I call it the peekaboo games. This is things you can do where you take a handful of your pet's food and you toss it on the floor. When their head's down, they're looking for it. That's when you walk out the door and close it, and then you walk back in about 10 seconds later. because it's while they're eating and they hear the sound of the door opening and closing, they're relating, oh, wow, this is kind of fun. Good things are happening. And they're not looking at the door and they're not thinking about you leaving, because those are the triggers. And they're learning how to walk away from you and ignore you when you go. And the same thing when you come back, because that's really what you want your pet to learn to do.
You know, we've heard and practiced social distancing as people during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's also something, believe it or not, that is in the forefront of the pet world as well. I mean, pets have to learn about social distancing.
Right. So it's important, and this is where it gets a little challenging, especially like with how do you socialize a puppy to like when people might need to come near, when people aren't supposed to come near, right? Or things like this. So a couple things is, it is good. So when you're walking your dog, people have to stay 6 feet away, and you want to encourage your dog to stay by your side, not pull and lunge and everything. So I call it, let's go for takeout meal. You're going to take your dog's food in your pocket, that meal, on the road as you go on the walk. And every 2 or 3 steps, you give them 1 or 2 nuggets of food for walking correctly by your side, and blending that with praise. Now, let's say and so it does 2 things. It helps to teach your dog to walk politely on lead. Secondly, good things are happening when people pass by, and that's how they learn to like people passing by. Now, yes, this is not the time for a lot of people to come up close, want to rub their hands all over maybe your dog. Now, depending on the situation, you may want your dog to start to learn to meet people. And I actually have a whole it's like housebound puppy socialization course, but in that I worked with a vet student who had just adopted a puppy, how she's standing 6 feet away as someone will greet her puppy, and she's tossing the food to land right in front of the puppy with the person greeting, so we don't have the risk of, me handing it to you or anything. And the puppy thinks it's coming from you, the new person, which is the point, to then like, oh, you're a new person and good things happen around you, But also, though, if it's a matter of, no, we got to keep on walking, how she's training her puppy to stay by her side. And then thirdly, we even have a little technique where I had in her pocket or treat pouch, she had some sanitation wipes, and she handed them you hand them to the person, your puppy waits while they wipe their hands, and then they can wipe your puppy.
Well, that's the world we live in today.
That's the world we live in, and they were all wearing masks, so that's also too. Put your mask on. Throw treats at your dog or your cat as you're wearing a mask in the house. Like, hey, masks now are no big deal. Put on some nitrile or latex gloves and pet your pet and wipe on them, or touch them, because of the veterinary practices, they may still be needing to wear gloves during examination of the pet to prevent any risk of contagion, and of course wearing masks as well. So we want the pets prepared for when they're going to the veterinarian. We can be a little tough to come to sometimes because they're sick or they're injured, and now if I look weird in a mask where I'm wearing gloves, this is how you can help us make it good to come to the vet, to be prepared to see us in masks and things.
There's a lot of information out there, surrounding COVID and the pandemic. And what if somebody has a question about, well, if I'm out on a walk, if I go to the park or I go to the lake, or even in my neighborhood and I encounter another dog, about a pet owner being concerned, their pet being around another pet, and then, what if they bring something back to the home? Have you had anybody inquire about that?
Yes, we have. And actually, we're filming this now in late May. And to date, there's only been a handful of dogs and just very few cats who have tested positive to COVID. Cats and minks are the 2 species that will have any kind of respiratory signs with it. These animals are not getting it from other animals. They're getting it from the humans. So it's the human that may have coughed in their hand or whatever, and then they pet their pet, or they're allowing the pet to lick their face. That's how transmission is occurring. So 2 dogs to kind of sniff around on each other are not going to transmit COVID. There could be other diseases, doggy diseases they could transmit, but not the COVID-19. So frankly, we encourage people to get outside because the fresh air, the sunshine, the circulation of fresh air is the best way to decrease transmission of COVID-19 and any other disease. And that if there's ever any concern, well, then it's really not a pet-to-pet problem. It's more about if you may touch the other person or the pet may be kind of like a carrier, you know, if like you've just kissed your dog and now I pet your dog, I just covered my hand in your spit. Okay, I'll say it, you know me, Kelly.
Right.
And so therefore, if I have just petted your pet, fine, I'm gonna wash my hands. Wash my hands before I touch my face or touch anything. Always act as if your hands are contaminated. That's the safest thing, because then you're gonna be washing them frequently and it will reduce any risk from petting anybody's pet or anything else.
What other questions have you fielded as a behavioralist from people concerned about COVID and how it could affect them or their animal in the home?
Really, the two leading questions have been, how do I socialize my puppy? And that's a good and important question, which is why I made that course that's on my website. It's written at the pet owner level, because we have had all these classes canceled, and socializing a puppy is not only about that puppy learning to meet and greet other dogs or other people, but also about getting used to, you know, cars passing by and being out on a walk and the microwave and beepers going off and all these, just everything in life that goes on around them. But how do you do it by yourself? Not in class, right? So that's a big one, puppy socialization. So it can be done, and just getting creative with it. And then the second thing is separation anxiety. I know my pet's gonna be upset when I go. So how can I prevent this? And that is starting to teach independence now. We're gonna reward that pet every time you walk out of the room. We're gonna set up times where I'm gonna set my pet up to be in maybe my bedroom or, you know, in its crate, throw a handful of food, close the door, and just leave them in there for half an hour and then just let them out like it's no big deal. Then I'm gonna help this pet learn to become, you know, more independent, while then also make a plan for maintaining the routines that you had during the shut-in as best you can with when you go back to work. So use this, you know, use some kind of transition time.
Are rewards always food-based? Because, you know, you may have some pet owners that say, oh my gosh, if I'm doing this all day long, I'm leaving, I'm coming back in, I want to get them to understand that I'm going to be going. Should you always give them food treats?
Well, that's why we use the meal as treats. So we're not feeding out of the bowl. We just now are making the food that they would eat as a meal as the rewarding. So yes, the reason why we use food is because it's easy to get them hungry, and then hunger is a motivator to want the food. Now, other things can be used. You can use a happy voice. You can use toys. Let's just put it this way, anything that gets the animal up to happy or they relate, you know, satisfaction or feeling good with. But that's why food is often used, because it is something that they need every day. And we can use limiting, you know, not free feeding the food so they get hungry for the food, and then it makes it a higher valued motivator, you know, meaning a reward, a higher valued reward for them. So,
is behavior something that we have to commit to as pet owners for the life of the pet? I guess the best way I could ask this is, so we've worked with them as a puppy, we've taught them these things as a puppy, they get older, they fall into bad habits again. Do we have to go through the whole regime of teaching them again? Or is it just a continual thing with the pet that you have?
You know, I would say it's a continual thing with the pet that you have, just like manners are a continual thing that people have, right? When I grew up, I was taught to say please and thank you, pardon me, right? To wait before I started eating, you know, if I was a guest somewhere. And it was what I was taught, and it's like reinforced because everybody else around me does that. And I'm reminded, especially as a businesswoman and then as an employer, et cetera, the importance of gratitude and doing these things. So it becomes a lifelong thing, not only I do, but there's things, you know, messages that come to me that remind me to keep doing it. In other words, it's not something I just learned as a child and I'm not expected to continue to do as I get older. And in a way, there's like a little bit of an expectation of those little reminders as you get older to keep staying nice, staying polite. And the same thing's true with our animals. And then I think secondly, that we have our life and our lifestyle set up to be helpful to maintain those routines, you know. Just especially for our pets, if it helps to make sure that your dog gets his walks every day to be best behaved and not destructively chewing things and that, well then you keep up with those walks every day or get a dog walker or something like that. You know, just that's what you do.
During this time of COVID-19, it's all of our lives are different and changed in every area. So there's probably a lot of failure in pet owners because they're dealing with their own stresses at home, whether it's having to become their child's teacher or maybe they're not working at that time. What do you see as the biggest, I don't want to say failure because it's just people have other issues going on that they can't keep up with maybe their pet. And maybe some encouraging words from you to say, you know what, you can get through this, and here's some easier ways that you can do this.
I think like a sense of being overwhelmed. So people are feeling very overwhelmed with, especially say their kids are at home and now we have to do all the classrooms online and figure out Google Hangouts and all these things. And then also work now is scheduling me for 5 online meetings over the next 3 days. And I'm just trying to work out the technology and oops, now the internet isn't running so well. You know, how do we do all these things? And then, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to get the dog out for a walk. I'm supposed to do this with the cat. Or I haven't done my usual routines. And now I can see they're squabbling more. They're getting more upset. I can only do so much, right? So that feeling of being overwhelmed. And so what I would encourage people to do is, first of all, seek whatever help you can. And that means within your own household. If you are the one who always took care of the laundry and the dishes and the pet care, and now you're the one who's taking on all these online meetings and online educating of the children or whatever, and you're feeling overwhelmed, then say to yourself, okay, who else in the home can do the dishes? Or maybe we'll just switch to paper. Not do dishes. I mean, no, I'm serious about that, right? Maybe you in other words, cut yourself some slack. Find out what's most important in your life to maintain. You could talk to a neighbor about, could you be my walking buddy for my dog? Would you please be the one to take my dog on the walks? Because I've got my children that I have to do this online classes with, and my child is in college now, has to do it all online. His dreams of living in the dorm wherever are now not going to happen this year. So there may be a neighbor or friend who'd be very happy to walk your dog 3 times a day so you don't have to do it. I think outreaching and being willing to ask for help for a simple step. Keep it simple, just one simple step. You don't have to try to make everything perfect. And I also think it's a time in life when we should allow ourselves to maybe have a messier house. You know?
True.
It's okay to eat off of paper.
And it's okay to reach out for help.
And it's okay to reach out for help. I think one of the biggest compliments to any person is to be asked to help somebody else. Because that means I trust you, right? I feel confident that you will do what I ask of you to do. And it's a kindness too, you know, because oftentimes if you're asked to help somebody else, you're very willing to help other people. Like helping each other just seems to share around better.
And if you're able to continue that routine and accept that help, that's going to in turn help your pet and your family life as well, because they're going to continue to get the positive reinforcement that they need and not act out in any destructive way.
Right. So if the dog starts squabbling because they're seeing all the people go by the window and they weren't able to get out for their walks because you're so busy, now if your neighbor who can get the dogs out for 3 walks a day, they get their exercise, they're too tired to look out the window and fight. Isn't that wonderful?
That is wonderful.
And believe me, there are good matchups like that. I've seen that happen a lot.
We're just about out of time, Dr. Foote. Last piece of advice for pet owners during this strange time that we're living in?
I think value them for who they are. They give us a lot of living in the moment, you know? These have been really crazy times. We don't know how crazier they're going to get. Yet I think, and that's one of the biggest perks people say they get out of pet ownership is just seeing how for their pet, their dog, their cat, their horse, their bird, or whatever, just takes it a day at a time. You know, and so if we can kind of emulate that with them and appreciate that companionship and that kind of just appreciating life as it comes, that's what we can do.
And get us through. Thank you, Dr. Foote. We appreciate, as always, you being we were just saying this is 10 years of the PAW Report, and you've been with us all along the way. So
Yes.
we appreciate your support, and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me be a part of this program. It's wonderful.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the PAW Report. I'm your host, Kelly Goodwin, and we'll see you next time.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the PAW Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The PAW Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
Finding a solution for your pet's behavior problem can be confusing. Dr. Sally J. Foote helps you help your pet. Private consultation and resources are available at drsallyjfoot.com. Foot and Friends, better bond, better behavior.